Welcome to Cancer Talks, a podcast sharing personal stories of transformation and collective healing from people who have been touched by cancer. My name is Claire DeLaslo, and I'll be guiding today's conversation. Our guest, JJ Flizanes, describes herself as an empowerment strategist. JJ shares her knowledge through podcasting, writing, speaking, and coaching. Through JJ's extensive career as a personal trainer, she's developed an acute awareness of the messages we receive from the body. One of the many resources JJ has created is the Invisible Fitness Formula, which I'll link to in the show notes. JJ's understanding of fitness goes far beyond the state of one's physical body to incorporate the invisible aspects of health. Invisible fitness means cultivating balanced support structures of energy, nutrition, and emotional centeredness. In today's episode, we talk about intuition's role in healing. I came across one of JJ's podcasts on radical remission when I was preparing to interview Carla Mans-Giroux of Health Navigators. Around the same time, we were working on developing a Cancer Talks workshop about one of the radical remission healing factors, strengthening intuition. JJ's podcast led me to her website, where I stumbled into her course on strengthening intuition. The timing was perfect. JJ and I got on a call and laid out a plan to use her video course as the foundation for a workshop on intuition, which will take place this June 2022. Keep listening to learn more and visit cancertalks.com/Zoom to register. If you have an idea for a workshop or would like to lead one yourself, please write to us at cancertalks.com/contact. Hi JJ, welcome to Cancer Talks.
Thanks for having me, Claire.
Because you're not a person living with cancer, I want to start with a little introduction of if you remember how cancer first showed up in your life.
I think it probably showed up when I started my personal training career and learned about people, knew people, had clients who were dealing with it. One in particular who was older, and she was in her 70s when I was training her. And I think actually she ended up passing because of the chemo, not because of the cancer. And that just sort of led me down, I was curious. I was curious as to this process. And I'm always the person who's curious about how things work and take a sort of a broad perspective of all of it. And I've been a root cause kind of person. I like to look at, what's the root cause of something? And so I would say that would be about the time that I was starting to really question all of the components of our physicality, which included our emotions.
At that time, or maybe just before that, what do you think you would have defined as cancer? What did you think cancer was?
Well, at that time, I was still in a mindset that was a little bit more victimized, a little bit more thinking that some things sort of just happen and that I would have thought it as an environmental issue, something in our food, something in our water, something in our air. And that's probably what I would have leaned in towards, would have been the food, the chemicals, and what's in our, in our environment.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have a different understanding of cancer now. Do you remember, tell us more about the story of when your way of thinking about it started to shift and what else was involved?
Well, my way of thinking started to shift when I became an entrepreneur full-time, when I moved from New York City to California. And I was introduced to Abraham Hicks, and I got a CD from my life coach at the time. And I was driving all around Southern California training clients. I had an in-home personal training company, and that was sort of my market. And at that time, also the business that I also had a belief that in order for me to be successful, that I needed to have clients that actually needed us. And what I found through working with very needy people and kind of blamey people is that they never took responsibility for their part in their results. So even though we might show up every day for 5 days or 3 times a week for an hour every week, it seemed to be that it was our fault if they weren't getting the results that they wanted, even though there was, what they ate during the day, if they did extra cardio, all the things that really would create the reality and create the results that they wanted. And we were looked at as either it was our fault or it was our success. So when I started to step back and look at how I attracted the clients that I attracted and the mindset that I had, I heard Abraham say, and for those of you that don't know, we're going to go a little spiritual woo here for a second, but Abraham is basically like a channeled, it's like intuition. And I know you and I are going to talk about intuition, but it's getting messages, downloads, and it can rather be from a person that you know, like a person that's crossed over or transitioned. It's more like source energy, God, angels, whatever you want to call it, that is giving you guidance. And so Abraham is a channeled message from guidance, creator, source, angels, God, whoever you want to say. And Esther Hicks is the current channel. And so Abraham had said, well, as I was driving, and I'd heard this CD before, I think, but I was listening to it all the time. And this phrase really was like a dagger through my heart in a good way. It said, "You are the creator of your own reality." And when I heard that, I had a sense of relief about that because I thought, well, great. If I don't like what's going on, I can change it. It gave me power. It was very empowering. Now, as I used that phrase over the years, I also really got to understand that a lot of people didn't have that same interpretation. They would take that, and I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, those of you that are out there listening, that sometimes in the cancer community, people might think, well, that's not true at all. And that makes me feel bad, like I've done something wrong and I'm being punished. And that isn't actually the message. And I didn't know that for a while. And I was using that because I looked at it as very empowering. And so to me, between the kind of clients at that time that I was attracting and the business model I was using, taking my power in you're the creator of your own reality, understanding law of attraction and quantum physics, and looking at my life differently through a different vantage point, I started to see the patterns and I started to see the emotional connection. And I'd had clients at the time who had multiple injuries. And at that point, I kind of specialized in it because nobody else knew science well enough in the personal training world to actually work these people out because they had so many injuries, they didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So I would safely sort of rehab their bodies and build muscle and strength and get them more mobile and get their brain connected to their muscle and be able to help people move, walk better, stand better, decrease pain, fix knees, fix backs. And I'd had a client who had back pain. And it was the first time that I'd handed Dr. John Sarno's book about back pain, healing back pain, to this said client. And he, in retrospect, what I know now, a lot of repressed anger there, because he had this back pain and of course, physical and the physicality of it, that's easy. Someone can fix that, right? You go to a chiropractor, you go to a massage therapist, physical therapy. I mean, these are all kind of easy things to address when it's physical. But as someone who learned science throughout my personal training career and applied said sciences throughout my personal training career, there were times where a perfectly aligned spine, someone with hormone balancing and nutritional excellence, if you will, still had debilitating pain. And there became the question of, well, why? What's the difference? If it can't be physical because they've been evaluated and everything checks out. So it can't be physical. And that's when I sort of realized and really realized the emotional connection of all pain and disease, and have it be not a punishment, not a you did something wrong, not even a mistake, but as a message from the body calling you to attend to something. Yeah.
And that's a great segue to intuition, because the question is, how do we know what the pain or the cancer is trying to tell us?
Well, I have a book. It's called Messages from the Body, and Michael J. Lincoln. It's a huge psychological reference to all pain and disease, and that's a place to start. But I'll tell you what, my ex-husband's aunt is a nurse, and when she had neck pain, and I said to her, "It's emotional, and I know what it is. It's that you're unwilling to see someone else's point of view." And I read her what was in the book. She goes, "Okay, that's true." And like a week later, she said, "But I still have pain." I said, as a nurse, you should know that the diagnosis of the problem is different than the treatment of the problem.
Right.
But I'll have to tell you just up front, the trick about intuition is that you have to be in alignment first to actually hear your intuition. We get messages all the time, but most people take those negative messages and say, oh, well, I felt this negative thing, but they were already in a negative momentum. And when you're out of alignment with like your highest self, like the highest version, the cleanest, the highest frequency, the best feeling, the most in touch with all that is, with that part of your brain, the right part of your brain that really understands that we are all cut from the same cloth, that we are all connected. There is no separation. When you're in that energy is when you listen to your intuition, when those messages that come to you happen. When you're in the fear momentum of the bad story of what could happen, what you might have to experience, when you have messages coming out of the negative and we follow them, we just get more of the negative. It's not actually intuition. It's the story of fear that happens. And again, so momentum, if you look at just momentum as either being out of alignment or in alignment, and we want to make sure that you get into it. And now sometimes being in alignment is as easy as when you're in the shower and you get a hit. And that hit that you get, that thought, that image, that feeling, that smell, that voice in your head, something happens, but most of us dismiss it. And we go, oh, no, that was just a fleeting thought. And we don't follow it because it's scary to follow something that just came to our brain. We don't trust it. Yet at the same time, when we're in negative momentum, we sure trust all those negative stories of fear and stuff that's going to happen. And then we follow that path. It's about retraining your body and mostly your brain to open up to, because we all have neural pathways. You have thoughts and feelings that are habitualized from when you were young and at birth and when you were growing up, and any core wounds and the way you interpreted the world. And so patterns were created. And at the same time patterns were created, there are patterns never established. You have parts of your brain, just like in personal training with your muscles. I'm sure you can all relate to doing an exercise for the first time or playing a sport you haven't played in many, many years. And then the next day or 2 days later, you're like, oh my God, I feel so many muscles that I've never felt before, because it was new, because you created new neural pathways for the body, which activated dormant muscles, dormant cells, dormant fibers in the body. Well, it's the same thing in your brain. You've got so many dormant areas of the brain because we just keep repeating patterns and habits all the time. Part of strengthening intuition is to create new neural pathways in the brain. And that can happen through many different ways, but doing it intentionally usually is the fastest way to start to strengthen that. And it does take a bit of trust and surrender and awareness of how intuition comes to you. And I know you're probably going to ask me because I taught a course on it, strengthening intuition course, and it goes over the 6 different kinds of clair meaning information, clairvoyant, clairsentient, and so forth. So it's really just creating new neural pathways in the brain.
You brought fear into the picture a little bit, and I was listening to an older interview that you did with Dr. Lynn Botris. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
So you asked her to define intuition. I'd love to get to your definition of intuition, but I'm thinking about fear, and it was making me think about A Course in Miracles and Marianne Williamson's framework of fear and love, where fear and ego are working together. And I was hearing a connection between love and intuition. And I started to think about maybe intuition as the voice inside us that knows true love. So I just wanted to bring that into the conversation.
I like that. That feels good. Again, I come at it from a physiological point of view from my training when I was starting to learn about the brain and creating new neural pathways. And I did my first live event. I'm not my first live event, but I did a 2019 manifestation boot camp. And it was when I connected, trying to teach law of attraction and quantum physics, connected the physiology of the muscles, because that's what I had studied, that again, creating these new neural pathways to activate dormant fibers within each muscle fiber to help you get results, to build muscle, to build metabolism. I realized the brain was the same. The brain had its same patterning. And I had been through, because I'd been doing live events and I had been with a healer and I had done lots of different healings, and I had leaned into more and more trust and a surrender to the thoughts and feelings that I was getting. And I was trusting them. And as I would trust them and I would follow them, I would get the guidance would work, so to speak. Like it would, right?
Yeah.
And there were times where these different parts of the clairs, I mean, I remember I remember being excited about going to a live event that I put on. I created like a little group. It wasn't my event. It was like a fireworks for the holiday season. And I invited a bunch of people. And one of my friends said, I'm bringing 2 other people. And I knew before she told me who they were. And they weren't anyone who I'd ever met before.
Wow.
But I had had a very strong picture and I knew exactly who she was bringing. And other things like that started happening where I would get a very strong feeling or a really strong image, or I would. And I started to notice that as I leaned into my own work and working with others and doing all this emotional work, that I have like a new set of sensory tools. And so when you talk about love and intuition, and again, I'm going to go back to the momentum of negative fear-based momentum or positive momentum, but it's really in alignment or out of alignment. And you can make that fear is out of alignment and love is in alignment.
Yeah, right.
And it doesn't mean love of a person or a thing. It could just be your heart is open and you're in a deep sense of awareness, alignment, and trust in that. And you're in the moment. If everyone just gets in the moment, just in this red hot moment, you'll get in alignment. Because if you're not thinking about the past or the future, and you're just in the moment, you'll be in alignment. The problem is our minds start to like attach to stories because we're so busy either being upset about what has already happened or we're being worried about what hasn't happened yet. And we're telling negative stories. So I would say that your intuition is really trustworthy when you're in alignment and you're feeling feelings of love and groundedness and peace and joy and freedom and expansion and hope. When you're feeling anything in the negative category of the emotions, I wouldn't trust your impulses there.
Yeah, right. And all those things you just named, I like to say they exist only in the present.
Freedom. Yes. Freedom and joy and love and
yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think do you think you defined intuition?
No, I think if I was to define intuition, I would say it's a combination of non-physical and subconscious or higher self guidance. I'm going to give you the different options because some people, this is where, regardless of whether you believe of something more than you and something greater than all of us, whether it be source, creator, universe, God, whatever, Jesus, a deity. If you don't have that, and someone, let's say, is an atheist or maybe even agnostic, then we can make it your higher self, because at least we can probably all agree that your subconscious brain, the 88% of you that you can't hear very well, that's been running your life, has information for you that you may not be hearing. So whether it be your own higher self and higher guidance, which is in you already physically, or you're connecting to all that is and to all of the collective non-physical energy of whatever faith or belief system you have, angels, again, whatever, right? It's guidance, and it's guidance that's not coming from logic. It's internal guidance coming from a higher level of frequency than you're at right now. Or, so to me, your intuition is just allowing in that guidance. And that guidance, again, isn't logical. It's not linear. It could even be from your right brain, because our left brain is our linear side. I interviewed Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor a few times on my show, and her latest book, Whole Brain Living, breaks our brain down into 4 different characters. And most of us are living in the 2 characters in our left brain, our left thinking brain, and our left feeling brain, which are all very logical, which also feel very separate from each other, separate from some kind of source or God, separate from the earth. We just feel disconnected. And the right brain, character 3 and 4, the thinking and the feeling brain, actually allow us to reconnect, because Jill Bolte Taylor had a stroke. She's a brain anatomist, and she had a stroke which shut down her left brain and put her in her right brain for a good number of years. And she loved living there, and she got to experience things that most of us in normal society don't get to experience, because we live in a society where we need structure, where we have to get things done. We are linear, but it isn't the truth of our being. It's only half of it. So when it comes to intuition, I'd say it could be multiple definitions. It could be using the right side of your brain, which again connects to higher frequencies, a broader perspective, feeling connected and all, like she called it, a fluid versus separate, or a solid. A solid was the right brain or the left brain where you feel separate from others if you're a solid. But if you're a fluid, and we're all water and this is all one big, that's a feeling of that everything on the earth, everything in the galaxy, everything is connected. And it's not really a belief, it's a feeling. And it's a point of view. And I think that intuition comes from that right side of our brain. What to do about it might be used in the left side, but I think the right side activating that is also what allows in this guidance. So to me, intuition is guidance, whether it come from outside of you or inside of you.
I want to talk about connectedness a little bit. I'm thinking about, Dr. Zach Bush.
Yes.
He was at a design shop we did a few years back, kind of birthing the Cancer Talks project. And he said this thing, isolation is the meta disease. And we've been turning that over ever since. I think it can mean a lot of different things, but talking about left brain as separateness and thinking about how that's related to cancer. He drew cancer cells on the board and talked about how there's disconnection there, there's isolation of the cell. But I think, it also applies in emotional contexts as we're thinking about the emotional context of cancer.
Right. Well, Dr. Nation and I, when we talked on, I don't know if it was our first show or second show, she had said that cancer is the ultimate disconnect. And, in terms of emotionally from your body. And I see that in all of the cancer clients that I work with in terms of trying to get them back into their bodies. And you don't have to be completely connected to your body necessarily to get in some intuition. You definitely can still be disconnected, but you do have to be connected to your heart, and you do have to be connected deeper. We have to have that strong connection to experience and to be aware of how intuition shows up for you and which one of the senses is strongest. There's a knowingness that sometimes people have that they deny because they don't have any linear facts. And again, the right brain it's so scary because most of us don't live there. We like it there. We want to go there. That's why people meditate. That's why they want to do fun things. That's why they want to play. And we absolutely need to rebalance the brain to get us there more. But that's what makes it challenging with intuition, because it isn't linear and it isn't scientific, so to speak. I think it's scientific because of quantum physics. And again, because this brain conversation of creating neural pathways in the brain, like I said earlier, you set up your life to have certain experiences over and over again because of your beliefs. When you start to change your beliefs, when you start to expand and stretch into trying new things, into new behaviors, into a greater sense of surrender, you literally are creating new neural pathways in the brain to now allow you to experience new things. Because in a current, let's say, repetitive brain pattern, you won't even notice when something new happens because you don't have the circuitry to be aware of it. So that's what I love that's why I created the course. I thought I was going to need some kind of psychic to do a course with in order for me to do it. Mm-hmm. And I realized that before I did it, I'm like, well, I've strengthened my own intuition. So I think I can teach this because I know mine has definitely increased 100 times in the last couple of years because I'm doing this work. And I thought, well, to me, it's just, again, opening up parts of your brain, and it can be that simple. But again, there's an emotional component that comes along with that. It means surrendering, trusting, letting go of control, not white knuckling it, making peace with things that you don't like. There's a bit of an emotional ride that needs to be had in order to get there.
I think it's almost more powerful to have a strengthening your intuition course from someone like you who's just lived it and practiced it, rather than, I don't know that much about clairvoyance, but in the interview you did with Dr. Lynn, she was saying clairvoyance is something that certain people have and other people don't. Intuition is something that anyone can cultivate. So yeah, I think it's especially valuable to hear how, you're not regular, but any person right. can cultivate. Yeah.
Well, can I share a recent testimonial about it?
Yeah, please.
I got this email about a week ago. It came through my website, and its subject line says, "Thank you." And the message is, hi, JJ. I recently listened to your podcast episode on inner child work, and I just want to thank you for being so vulnerable. Back in 2016, I was diagnosed with MS. Long story short, it never felt like my truth. And after reading a book that changed my life, The Divided Mind by Dr. Sarno, and lots of therapy, including your strengthening intuition course, I began having I began having memories of being sexually abused as a child. It has been some of the hardest work I've ever done, but I'm completely healed from all my MS symptoms. So it has been 1000% worth it. I love that your show is all about taking back your power, and your inner child episode really touched me. Doing the emotional healing myself really makes me want to help others through this process. So I thought that was a great testimonial, because she can't get a doctor to say she's cured of MS, but she knows she is, because it's with a neurological issue, but she has no symptoms. And again, she took on this course, did it herself, and got to the point where she was allowing in repressed memories that were creating this illness. And I think that's super powerful. I'm hoping she'll join my team as an empowerment strategist in the future, if not this year, because I think having someone to be able to speak to that and to walk that path and then have come to the other side of it, when we talk about intuition, and after interviewing so many psychics, I've had so many psychics on the show. And again, asking that the interview you heard was way in the beginning. And her
episode
position,
7.
right. And her position was that, not everybody is clairvoyant. And again, after doing this for so long with so many people, I called bullshit on that. I'm like, no, I don't buy that. No. The reason is because, okay, maybe she was born with some of those pathways already established. And I'm saying, and I know people, again, I know so many people, and I've interviewed so many people, and I see these patterns, and I've worked with, and I've had them at my events, and I've done programs, and I've had sessions. And what keeps becoming clear to me is that, and someone, even a psychic who, I don't know if you listened to Lori Kazan, I said to her, when did you know you were psychic? And she said, when did you know that you weren't? And I was like, oh, I mean, I had to step back and realize this has been my life's work, and finally kind of claim the emotional part of this, because I talk about it incessantly, because to me, it's the key. If the picture in your mind creates a container, and if your container is full of fear, the body literally shuts down, pulls back, and goes into a fight or flight state where it stops producing healing chemicals. It's in defense mode. It shuts down. But if the picture in your mind is something you're moving towards, that you want, that you're excited about, that you're happy, that your body feels good about, it produces complementary chemicals to the picture in your brain. For a lot of people, over and over again, I'm seeing this all the time. If we deal with the emotional piece, if we can get you to surrender, if we can get you to trust, if we can get you to find love and excitement and joy and peace, and think about life not from the perspective of I have cancer, now we can move away from what you've been like, the environment, or the terrain, as Naisha would say, the terrain environmentally, energetically, emotionally, that's caused the problem in the first place. So to me, it's the most powerful work ever.
That was such a good summary of why we are doing cancer talks. I wanted to go back a few steps and hear in a little more detail, and I don't even know if I totally got what you were saying in this moment, but you said you don't actually necessarily need to be connected to your body, but you do need to be connected to your higher self, spirit, whatever we want to call it. Can you clarify that a little bit? Because I also see connecting to your body as a useful way to get in touch with intuition.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And in the course that I have, there's a meditation every week that is about connecting to your body. Being that I have a personal training background, that's a whole nother level. And that's what I mean about, so how I handled clients in a personal training setting. And you can think about this from anyone who does any kind of exercise. Let's say if you've done any kind of resistance training at all, ever, even just one time. So let's say you have 2 weights in your hands and you're doing a shoulder press, which is bringing your hands over your head together with weight in them. Okay. Most people, even when they're exercising, are still not connected to their body in the deepest way. And so when I say you don't have to be completely connected, I think that's what I mean. It's sort of next level connection. I did a talk once and men, I said, it was a kind of a joke, but they're like, men said, do you know why men die first? And they're like, because women kill us. And I said, well, I go, you're so single focused as a man, because that's part of how you're built, to go hunt the deer, to feed the family, is that you don't notice the subtle things happening along the way. You ignore them, which is why all of a sudden, while there were signs happening, you've chosen to ignore them until they take you down. Could we have caught it 6 signs before? Absolutely. But you're not focused on that because no one teaches you how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's levels to me of being connected to your body, and cancer being the ultimate disconnect. Just to start with being present, to be able to take that lesson, to be able to ask yourself, where do I feel things? Where do I feel my emotions? Most people don't have a language for emotions. I teach a whole course, Anatomy of Emotion, about emotions, because we don't feel them. And yet our body, we know that when you feel embarrassed or someone's embarrassed, sometimes their face gets flushed, right? That's a physical manifestation of an emotion. Or when you're nervous, sometimes people have stomach aches or have diarrhea or have neck pain because they're stressed or they're nervous. And again, those are physical manifestations of an emotion. So until we are in our bodies at least enough to notice a stomach cramp, a neck pain, flushing of the face, my heart beating faster, starting to sweat, my brain spinning and my thoughts spinning quickly, or that I'm emotionally eating because I'm trying to slow it down, right? There's so many indicators. So again, there are, to me, just because I am me, I have these layers and levels of what really connected means. And I think, I don't know that everyone will get there, but which is why I'm saying first step is to at least get into your body in some way. Exercise is great. Meditation can be good. Some kinds of chakra clearings are good, but I think it's an ongoing practice and journey in your entire life to always be connected to your body and see what it needs and ask it what it needs and listen when it's trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. I hear, I have a ballet background, and then yoga, and then Pilates, and it's not my main thing right now, but I also have a very high standard for what it means to be really connected with your body, which is sometimes totally excruciating because I see other people walking around just like in their head all day, and they can just go a whole day without movement. And I'm like, how do you even function? But I think I appreciate that, just acknowledging that I think it's fair to say most people in the US in this day and age are very disconnected. And so I think it is helpful to say, there's power in making the effort, like just taking time to do something that gets you more into your body than where you were when you woke up. The intention and sitting down and making the effort to connect can be really helpful, especially in terms of being open, making yourself open to intuitive messages.
Absolutely. And, and yes, I think everybody can get there. I mean, I have a whole YouTube channel of exercises. So, but in terms, and I even go over the mind body connection in that way, and really knowing, like, if you're exercising, what muscle, and again, this can be in your life also by understanding and being present with whatever is going on in that moment. So if you're hiking or walking every Monday, we're recording this on a Monday, and I do a 2-hour hike with my partner. And when we're hiking up, I'm trying to be in my body as I'm hiking up. I'm trying to be mindful of my step and push off from my glute and pull up with my quad and not be disconnected. Sometimes people exercise and they're doing 20 things at the same time and then wonder why they're either not getting results or they hurt themselves because they're not actually in their body while they're doing the thing. So being present just in general, right? And not running to or running from, but just being in the moment. And that can come to people in many different ways. So yeah, I agree. And I think we all have an ability to improve. So I'll just say that. I was on the couch all weekend. Last 2 weekends ago, I was running a mastermind in Myrtle Beach, a lot of energy, a lot of late nights, a lot of giving, mind, body, and soul, 17-hour trip back, which was hilarious. I could have been in Europe for that that amount of travel. And I get back, felt okay. And then it hit me on the weekend. And I literally took a nap on Saturday. I did nothing. I did no work. And I just listened. My body kept saying, nope, you are not rested. You need to relax. And so I just listened. But most of us don't allow that. And that's where we get into trouble, is when our body's trying to tell us something and we're not listening.
It's really a wake-up call and a good reminder to hear that you rested for a whole weekend because of, how many podcasts you've done, how many courses you've made, how much you do. So I'm almost surprised, but very pleasantly surprised to hear that you actually will spend a whole weekend resting. Because just the rat race, like society, especially with social media culture and like, all this voyeurism of seeing what other people are accomplishing, it's really easy to assume that it's okay to not rest, that it's better to never rest. Kind of a tangent, but also totally related to, I think every story we've told on the podcast about cancer has something to do with women, especially, who never let themselves slow down.
Well, I had a massage. Oh, and I'm Miss Queen self-care. I mean, every week there's a massage, there's acupuncture, there's 5 to 6 hours of exercise. There is naps on the weekends. I take off Friday all day for self-care. I don't do any work on Saturday. And if I can avoid it, I don't really do work on the weekends unless I'm traveling. That's just to get ahead on the podcast. But I also walk my talk, and I love my left side of my brain. But I also want more right side. And since I have been walking my talk more and more, for people that think because I talk fast, because I have a lot of fire energy astrologically, I can shut off as easily as I turn on. But there are times where, I'm out of balance. And so I take my balance. And I would say, after working with a ton of cancer patients, I would say that is an overarching theme of control. I would say that most people that I deal with cancer, their addiction is control. And that means control of circumstances, control of other people, being a breadwinner, being smart, understanding, taking, like, it's like a white knuckling. And I'm going to tell you that cancer is not here for you to kill or for you to fight. Cancer is here for you to embrace and hear the message. Because I have people who've had it 3 times, who have done all the things until they get to the emotions and they go, oh, this is the thing I haven't dealt with, is my emotions. Like how to feel joy, how to feel love, how to feel hope and passion and surrender and lack of control. So I walk my talk, and on all my podcasts, if there's an emotional thing, I did inner child work, and we use me as the guinea pig. So, I fully cry and am vulnerable, because we're all in this life experience. And, my next book is going to be talking about all those emotions. And because most people are afraid of them, they're afraid to feel, they're afraid to feel negative emotions or being out of control. So to me, again, the block for cancer really comes down to trying to control your circumstances because of whatever belief you have that you're supposed to hold the family together. You're supposed to make sure you take care of everybody else. And especially with women. No, it's us finally leaning into, because you get there. I mean, I'm sure your listeners have listened to like Dying to Be Me with Anita Morjani, and she's been on my show also. Like, you get to the point where until you surrender, like, that was your lesson. And it's not about all the food necessarily. I mean, for some people, it's one little thing and boom, it works. But if you've been dealing with this for a long time and you've done all the things, I'm going to tell you that all the things are still all that left brain, white knuckling, have to do it right, have to check off the box, control, separate left brain thinking, until you're willing to let it go, surrender, relax, trust. Surrender is just really the best word.
I love that you brought in control, because that's not actually a word we've been circling around it and said it maybe in different ways, but control hasn't really come up. And at the same time, I think it's maybe the best way to say why we don't focus on nutrition in this podcast and in our community gatherings and workshops, because people can change what they're eating, change their exercise, change a lot of the things that, a lot of people think of as mainstream medicine thinks of as health, without giving up an ounce of control. And yeah, so that's why we're here, trying to have these conversations, because yeah, it's about surrender. It's about actually letting go and trying to listen to what needs to be different, what's actually not working, which isn't about forcing, white knuckling something to change, but about putting yourself in the position to really listen.
Which circles us right back to intuition.
Right.
Did you want to tell people what we're doing for the intuition?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So in June, JJ is going to teach a 4-week intuition course. It's actually already been taught. It's already recorded, and anyone in the Cancer Talks community, all our cancer thrivers, will have access if you want to sign up and commit to the 4-week workshop, and we can go through the videos together, have sort of a study group, and JJ will be coming on for an orientation, 1 hour in the beginning, a wrap up, an hour at the end, and 2 30-minute Q&As in between. JJ, will you tell us a little bit about what the course contains?
Sure. So in the course, I go over those clairs, the different kinds of clairs and ways that you can receive intuitive guidance. And I'm sure everyone will at least be familiar with a couple of them, and some of them will be new to you, which will open you up to maybe now receiving more information in a way that before you maybe just missed. And it's set up as a 4-week course, and we're doing this together in June, so you can actually follow the course as it's designed. When I create a course, I only do it once, and I do it live specifically to create this kind of momentum and accountability from week to week. When you buy a course on your own, you're in charge of keeping yourself accountable and not watching all 4 videos at one time. Because again, with this intuition work, it's about practices and habits that are creating new neural pathways, just like exercise, right? You're not going to go to the gym and work out every day for a week and think that you're going to reverse 20 years of bad habits or build muscle and increase your metabolism and lose 20 pounds in a week. Doesn't work like that. It's about what you're practicing and the new things you're introducing, and then being able to introduce like one step at a time. So we're going to set the course up that you'll have access to it. And I'm going to encourage that you do it one step at a time, that you start with the first class, and then maybe we'll do the introduction with me either before or after that you start that. And then every week will be a 30-minute Q&A after that until the end, where you'll be responsible to watch the second week's video and start doing the work and then ask any questions, so we can really deal with any sticking points or misunderstandings or applications of the information. Because just like exercise, we're trying to create neural pathways in the brain so that way you get guidance more easily, which is what that testimonial that I shared with you was about, that Meredith had done the exercises, which was opening up her brain and allowing in repressed memories to show her that was what was causing her disease. So we'll just be fielding some questions and keeping accountable during the middle of the month, 3rd week. And then on the 4th week, we'll deal with any remaining questions, things that you want to do next, what to keep up, what to add to your regimen or protocol. And then to see, hopefully within that first 4 weeks, to also see some change and to really be able to connect and maybe even follow an impulse that you might have, and to hopefully have some success in strengthening your intuition, even just a little bit. But the more you do it, the better you'll get.
Thanks, JJ. And yeah, so really excited about that course. And anything else you want to say, JJ?
Well, I hope to see you all at the Strengthening Intuition course in June and follow along with us and get the accountability and support that you need to do the exercises. In the meantime, though, all of my podcasts are free. Well, I have one that is paid, but that's part of my membership. But there are plenty of other podcasts that I have. Spirit, Purpose, and Energy would be my recommendation to get more information in the meantime. And I teach a lot of things on the show, a lot of exercises that you can do. And again, you have access to it all the time. So I would say go there, and until I see you in June.
Great. Yeah. And we'll leave links to all of JJ's podcasts and website in the show notes. So check those for details. And yeah, hope to see you in the workshop. Thanks, JJ.
Thanks, Claire.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please leave a review in your podcast app. Cancer Talks is a platform for anyone who has been touched by cancer. If you'd like to be in community with other cancer thrivers seeking personal transformation, join us for workshops on Zoom. Visit cancertalks.com/Zoom to register. If you're moved to donate, please visit cancertalks.com/donate.